Good evening and welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns Hour here on YouTube and DLive. My name is Tom Luongo. It is Friday. It's October 4th. It's 2019 and damn, I forgot to shave. Fuck, I look like shit. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah. Damn, dude. Seriously, you should start this over again. All right. Well, whatever. All right. We're gonna run with it because I don't really have any other choice because we're live and that's just the way this stuff goes. Okay. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at TFL1728. You can follow me on Patreon at patreon.com/goldengoatsandguns, as well as at my website at tomluongo.me, where today I published another article this afternoon on the thing we're going to talk about tonight, and tend to do that, right? But that's how this works. So for those of you who are new to the stream, if you like what you hear tonight, please give a like and subscribe down below. Please bang the bell for notification, all that happy YouTube jazz, because it does actually make a difference. I've noticed in the last week or so, since Steven Crowder first really highlighted what YouTube was doing in terms of just squelching, finding his work, and my wife has noted the same problem with trying to find Tucker Carlson's regular show and everything else. That since that's happened, the search engines have been a little bit more lenient, and I've noticed a number of people popping in here. I also noticed that we picked up a lot of people this week after a very generous shout out from the Duran over Alex over at Duran earlier in the week, discussing the various numerical scenarios vis-a-vis Brexit, and I do appreciate that. And the guys over at Duran have, are certainly influences of mine, and they've been very generous to me and my work for quite a long time now. So for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, I will warn you, I swear like a sailor, if you didn't notice that with the F-bomb that opened the show. So I give it to you loud and dirty. I want to make it stick. I don't have a filter. And if you have questions, you have comments, as always, the format is as usual. I'm going to talk about 20-25 minutes on my preferred subject of the night. Then we'll open it up, and I'm just going to read comments back and talk. There are no super chats. This is not a monetized channel. If you like what you heard tonight, you can donate. There are links down below that you can do all that stuff with. So I'm just kind of waiting for a few people to get in here, and we'll go on from there. Yeah, your delicate ears, Tenjin. I'm sure you've never heard me say horrible things in the past. Right. Fuck you talking about all the Marvels. So today I wrote an article today about Donald Trump, and I'm going to bring back Steven Crowder, because last night my wife played me the beginnings of a segment from Crowder talking about how he thought that, one, he said he'd been wrong about Donald Trump, and he actually now believes that Trump is the right guy for this environment. And Crowder made a lot of arguments that you've heard me talk about. Many in the stream world had at this thing, that Trump himself is the right kind of person you need to have in place here to fight the deep state the way it needs to be fought. But I started this article. I said, okay, I told Camille last night, I was like, that's good, send me a link. She did. And I watched it this morning and then started working on the post, because I thought this was really important that we go over this again, because I have given Trump a tremendous amount of shit for foreign policy blunders that he's made over the last 2.5 years, and rightly so. I've also taken a lot of criticism from Trump supporters who feel that I've been too hard on him because I'm not seeing the bigger picture. Well, I don't care about the bigger picture. The bigger picture to me is foreign policy. Fixing the domestic troubles here at home will go nowhere if you don't fix the foreign policy, because it is the foreign policy that, once that's fixed, the impetus for most of the corruption here at home degrades. And it's kind of what I was trying to say in previous live streams, talking about the potential here for this Ukraine stuff to turn into a coup against Trump. So here we are. So as I was putting this together, I'm like, well, what do I do? What's the hook here, right? I mean, I'm always writing an article. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm writing an article, I'm always looking for the hook that will matter. And if I can really hook it to something, what's the word I'm looking for? Zeitgeist based, movie based. It's not that. It's the gestalt, right? Cultural based. If I can find cultural touchstones to touch on, and I don't mean touch in the, inappropriate way. I just mean cultural touchstones. Then it would be cool. And so I'm like, oh, boom, bing, The Big Lebowski. Because there's that great scene at the end of The Big Lebowski where the dude finally meets up with the narrator, cowboy, Sam Elliott. And he just says, I like your style, dude. And talk. It's like, but, do you have to use so many cuss words? It's like, dude's like, the fuck you talking about? I'm like, that exchange right then and there sums up the way a lot of us actually feel about Donald Trump. Like, I like the style. I like the thing. Do you have to tweet so much, or do you have to do this so much? Everybody's got their complaint about how Donald Trump comports himself as president, because some of it's very unpresidential, or at least very unconventionally presidential is actually the better way, I think, to look at it. Because I've never had a problem with any of the things that Trump does as president, because he's doing exactly what I voted for when I voted for him. I'm like, dude, blow the lid off this thing. Make this, make it, laugh at it all in a certain way. I mean, have respect for the presidency and for the office and as such, but dispense with all the fake pomp and circumstance surrounding the solemnity of the most important man in the world bullshit. Like, take that shit down a notch or two, or 12 or 40 or 30 or 450, because that's actually what needs to happen. I'm like, that sequence between the dude and the cowboy or the narrator is just brilliant. And it does really encapsulate the way a lot of people think about Donald Trump. Like, and then at the end of the day, Trump just kind of looks at him and goes, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't care. I'm me. This is who I am. If you don't like it, like, this is me. And that's kind of the thing that's important here. And in some ways, people are angry with Donald Trump for being that. And in a lot of other ways, people are angry with Donald Trump because they know that because he's unwilling to play that game and to be pushed back into that box, that then they can control him then if they can do that. And he's not controllable from that front. He's controllable on other fronts, and we've talked about that in the past. And I firmly believe that Trump has made deals to keep himself in office with various people and all of this stuff, all of which, by the way, have been reneged on by the people he made the deals with. We've also covered that. When you think about going back to, say, August 2017, when he made the obvious deal to get Obamacare repealed for doubling down in Afghanistan, and then Lindsey Graham fucked him, and John McCain fucked him. Okay? I mean, so obvious. Well, John McCain had already fucked him, and then John McCain's brain tumor fucked him. But it was very obvious that was the deal. And then they didn't get it done. And I think that was the beginning of things for Trump. And then he was really angry. I bombed freaking Syria. I bombed Afghanistan. I put more troops in Afghanistan. I did all this shit. I want Obamacare repealed, you sons of bitches. And they didn't do it. And then they enabled Mueller to go freaking crazy for the next year and a half and cost them the midterm elections. And about halfway through 2018, he realized that, okay, this is not working. On playing footsie and playing nice with these people isn't working. I think that's pretty obvious. I still don't think Donald Trump has the moral courage to be a true leader. But I do believe that Trump is vicious, mean, vindictive, and narcissistic enough to do a lot of damage to them before they remove him kicking and screaming from the White House. Honestly, that would be more than I could have ever hoped for. And I did hope for a lot early on, but then I had to come to my senses and put away childish things like, oh, I don't know, winning. And if Trump winds up winning this fight against these people in the end, I'll be happy to be wrong. I mean, I just am. I'm not such an egotistical jackass to be like, oh, I've got to be right about this. Well, fuck that. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll be happy to be wrong. I'll be happy to have people like the dirtbag William Justice come back and say, see, I told you so, dude. I told you, you're an asshole. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm an asshole. Fuck off. Did we win? Good. Fuck off. I don't care. I don't have to be right in the moment. I don't have to be right all the time. I'm happy to be wrong when I'm telling you things and I'm talking about things and I'm projecting things that I don't want to see come to pass. Like, it's not about me. It's about making the world a better place. So let's talk about this. So when I sat down to write the article today, I had to review some of the things that I've talked about with Trump, because I've talked about Trump in these terms since before he was even inaugurated. Right after he was elected, I said, this guy's going to wind up being the great champion, per Strauss and Howe of the fourth turning, who believes that with every fourth turning will be one man, a strong man will rise, who will usher in the new era, who will be the guy who does the hard work and the implementation to get it done. Whatever that's going to be, he's going to be the guy that sets the tone for the next cycle. That the generation who's going to decide what those terms are, what it's going to look like. So FDR, 10 years before the end of World War II and the baby boom generation, that FDR as a member of the previous prophet generation implemented that which the hero generation, the GI generation, put in place. I mean, that's what happened. Same thing with Abraham Lincoln, same thing with George Washington, yada, yada, yada. So is Trump that guy? Is he the one who's going to like bring about whatever it is? He's going to bring about the conditions for the change that the millennials are going to set in place, because the millennials are the ones who are going to set the terms here. Us Gen Xers don't have a chance. We're not going to do it. That's not what we're built for. Our job is to help him tear it all down. Our job is to enable him to tear it all down. So is he tearing it all down? I don't know. I don't know that we're at that moment that we'll know that yet. I think we'll only know it in hindsight. I think we got the feeling that it's happening. I think we want it to be the case. I don't know that it actually is the case. And, it is what it is. So, it's what we have. And so when we stop to look at what Crowder was talking about, is there a guy, and I was saying, when Trump was elected, it's part of the reason why I was even convinced by other people to vote for Trump in the first place. Like, look at who he is. Look at the skill set he brings to the table. That skill set, if he brings it to bear completely, will be a big deal. It will be game changing, and it will be the right skill set to navigate this if there's any possibility of him being able to actually navigate this. That's not, and there's no guarantee that he's going to be able to do it, right? And that's what we were saying back then. And so I'm looking at this now, and I'm looking at how desperate his opposition has become. And they're literally trying to impeach him for Joe Biden's crimes, right? They're literally taking their Alinsky bullshit and running with a narrative to try and make him into the guy who did the quid pro quo thing. Well, it's just nonsense. It's all Biden did all that. And this is a classic Alinsky tactic of accusing your opponent of that which you're guilty of in order to discredit the information that he digs up on you and to soften the blow. And that's what these people always do. And Trump is immune to nuts and sluts. They've tried it multiple times. It hasn't worked. They tried to call him crazy. They tried to call him unstable. They tried to call him a fucking womanizer and, all of this stuff. The Hollywood Reporter tape, grab him by the pussy, all this crap. None of that crap works. Why? He's a shameless, schmoozing dude. It's like, we're not under any illusions about this. In the same way that Boris Johnson over in England is doing the same thing. That same thing. It's not going to hurt him that somebody came up 10, that he grabbed some intern's ass 10 years ago. It's not going to hurt him. It's not why he's prime minister. And it's not why Trump is president. And so now they literally have to manufacture shit out of thin air. On top of the stuff they've already, and use that to continue to try and validate the thin air that they've accused him of previously. At the end of the day, it's all hot air. So, I mean, I don't even care about the details anymore about what's going on in Ukraine. I just know that everybody in Washington probably has their fingers in the frickin' pie. Because Ukraine, as an operation going back to 2013 and even earlier, the setup for 2013, EU accession talks, and eventually the Maidan in 2014 and Crimea and all this stuff, the setup for this involves multiple layers of government, involves multiple layers of corruption, multiple vectors of corruption. How many people in Congress, how many people in the Senate got a kickback or looked the other way or had a bill passed or voted for the wrong bill or voted for a bill or whatever. That all has to stem from some of the shenanigans that were going on in Ukraine. In order to destroy it, put in a puppet government so that we can put missiles on the border of Russia so we can point them directly at Moscow to try and neutralize their missile defense systems so the neocons can start World War fucking III. Because that's what this is all about. And now that Trump has revealed himself to be a guy who's as good as his word, I'm not going to war with Iran for no goddamn reason. Not for an unmanned drone and not for hitting a Saudi oil facility. I'm not doing it. You're not going to make me do this. Netanyahu, Kushner, Bolton, Pompeo, Haspel. You guys can fabricate all the freaking casus bellis you want. I'm not doing it. I'm going to open up talks again with Kim Jong-un. I'm going to try and fix that freaking relationship. I'm going to try and open up talks with Iran, but you guys have put me in such a fucking bad situation. They won't even talk to me anymore. And you deserve to be treated that way, Donald Trump, exactly the way I told you that the Iranians would treat you if you went down this road, which you did, and now you're fucked. But Trump is Trump going to survive it, even if he's not guilty of anything, even if all he's guilty of is being president. At the end of the day, Crowder was saying, he's like, look, if you want to impeach him for being Donald Trump, impeach him for being Donald Trump. Don't gussy it up with bullshit about, well, it's a pay to play in Ukraine. Don't try and do that. Just say, we don't like him and we don't want him in office anymore, and we have the power and the votes to do it, and we're going to get rid of him. At least be honest about it. At least AOC and Rashida Tlaib and Ilmar Ohan and whatever her fucking name is, at least they're honest about it. At least the freaking Young Turks are honest. They just want him out of power. They don't give a fuck how they do it. Fine. Cenk Uygur wants to spend his money trying to get Trump thrown out of the White House. Great. He's more than welcome to. Banzai and bon voyage. I don't give a shit. I think Trump should send him to jail. But, hey, that's me. I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter. My opinion on this is irrelevant. I'm just a turd-flinging monkey like the rest of you. But if you're going to try and make a case for this, well, then you got to make a better case than what you're doing. But the problem is that Trump is not stupid. Again, goes back to the skills. Trump's a real estate developer from New York. It's the most corrupt place on the planet, one of the most corrupt places on the planet. And he's always walked away smelling like a rose. How do you do that? Unless you got skills. Have the skills? Taught? Do you have the blackmail material? Do you have everything in line? Do you have your ducks in a row? Pay off the right people? Do you know how the game is played? Do you write anything down that you're not supposed to? No. Not dumb. And they don't have him on anything. Because if they had him on anything, he'd have been gone already. Mueller would have found it. And Barr would have never intervened. Because Bill Barr would have never put his reputation on the line for Donald Trump when Donald Trump was fucking guilty. Think of the people involved, think of their motivations, and you can pretty much figure out what's going to happen next. It's not tough. So that's why it's interesting. I don't think Trump has lived up to the hype. I don't think he's lived up to that expectation. I think he's made too many mistakes to this point. He's put himself in a very dangerous and vulnerable position on a number of fronts from a foreign policy perspective, which will ultimately turn into an election promise perspective. But thankfully, he's running against such a hapless goddamn field of literal degenerate morons. I don't see how he can lose against them. Just don't. That's why they're trying to get rid of him, to run Mike Pence as Gerald Ford and Hillary Clinton as Jimmy Carter. That's the friggin' plan. I'm not saying that plan is going to happen, but that's the plan. Stoyanovich says Mueller was an excavation operation. I know, and they didn't get anything. What do they got? They had to go to this friggin', they had to sit there and in real time try and entrap him into something, trying to get him into something by illegally spying on him, because the CIA is not supposed to be planting people within the White House staff. They're not even supposed to be operating on U.S. fucking soil. How is Gina Haspel not fired at this point? And sure, it's all coming out that Schiff sat on it and he knew what was going on. It was all a big friggin' circle jerk and the rest of it. Is he going to go to jail? Is anybody going to actually do their fucking job? Put the guy in friggin' handcuffs? This is the problem. This is the problem. So, whether Trump gets through this or not, oh my God, whether Trump gets through this or not is going to come down to whether or not he has the goods. Does he have the ability to put these people away? Because he has to be able to put them away in order to be able to get to the next, to be able to get through to 2020 and then into his next term. I know a lot of you have talked about, and a lot of people are talking about Bill Barr is over in Italy now, or now he's on to the next place, listening to the tapes of Joseph Mifsud and all of this stuff about how the Steele dossier was put together and how that's going to relate to Ukraine. Because again, at the end of the day, Ukraine is about everything. Because they had the people in place to create the false narrative because they controlled Ukraine. So they very lazily interfaced with MI6 in Ukraine in order to create a fucking fake dossier out of whole cloth. And now they're going on to this idea that he's not allowed to go after his political opponent. Like, so we're never allowed to go after anybody for anybody for corruption who's a member of the opposite party ever again, period. No, period, paragraph, end of story. No, ever? Really? Really? If Trump had started going after Joe Biden 6 months ago before the campaign officially started, would that have been okay? I mean, is it a little shitty that he's doing it now? Yeah. Is it a little, is it, but so what? Biden's not going to be the nominee anyway. And the Democrats don't even want him to be the nominee. They're like trying to figure out how to get rid of the guy at this point. He doesn't even want to be the nominee. So let's just dispense with the bullshit. If anything, the only reason Joe Biden's running for president is in the vain hope that he beats Donald Trump so that the rest of his fucking crimes don't come out when the Ukraine collapses now that Zelensky's in power. And all the lies in Ukraine collapsed, to be more accurate. Now that Zelensky's in power and he's making noise about ending all the conflict and ponying up to Putin, because if Ukraine's going to survive, they're not going to survive because of a U.S. drip feed of arms and funny money. It's not going to happen. If Ukraine's going to survive as anything other than a complete failed state, they're going to have to make nice with Russia. Does he have the goods? He's trying to get the goods. He's scaring the shit out of them. What he's done. So it doesn't even matter whether he's successful here. Even if they drag him out by his feet for on a bullshit trumped up impeachment charge that allows Pelosi to like virtue signal her tits off, what's left of them, about how justice was served and all, whatever. They can say what they want. Yeah, it's infuriating. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, it's politics. Get over it. He will, in the process, expose all of them because he's going to take them all down. So Bagel Flicking Dragon says, "Look, Tom, I don't think that Trump has the testicular fortitude. Neither do I. This is why I've been so hard on him because I know that the best way to get Donald Trump to act and not try to appease people and try to be liked by people is to fucking yell at him and call him a shithead. Then he gets angry and he goes and does things. Then he fires people. Then he starts investigations. You have cross him and he does what you want him to do. That's how you motivate Donald Trump. You cross him. Then he's like a fucking heat-seeking missile. That's why he's the right guy for the right time and place, because eventually they were going to cross the line into doing something really fucking dumb. Like this whistleblower, who's not a whistleblower. He's a CIA fucking plant. And now he's angry. He was going to let it go, but Hillary wouldn't let it go because she's so full of fucking bile, that cunt. She still has the dream, man. She can't give it up. She can barely walk, for fuck's sake. She's going to be president? God spare me the virtue signaling fucking boomers. Jesus Christ. Nothing wrong with boomers. Just stop the goddamn virtue signaling, okay? Bolton already has spouted off about Trump. It's great. Because now John Bolton is all of a sudden the hero of the resistance, for fuck's sake. Have you seen this shit? He went out, he gave a public speech last week lambasting Trump up and down the line, and he was on MSNBC, and Joy Reid was like all over. It was ready to get on her knees and make like a circus seal to John goddamn Bolton. I mean, are you kidding me? It was the most beautiful thing I'd seen in forever. Like John Bolton, hero of the resistance. How does that square with Cenk? How does what's her name? Anna Kendrick and Cenk Winger, how do they deal with that? God, now it's like John Bolton's like a good guy now because he's on our side because he hates Trump. Oh my God. It's cognitive dissonance 101. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So you can see this coming, right? You can see that Trump is obvious. It's obvious at this point now that Trump realizes that he's in a mess foreign policy-wise. I mean, it's just crazy. And he's got to extricate himself from this. Got to extricate himself from this. I don't know that he's capable of it, to be honest with you. All right. Those are my opening thoughts. Let's open it up to questions and comments and all the rest of it. I'm going to go back over it. I'm sure you guys have got a lot to say. But I think the jury's still out. Ultimately, I think the jury's still out on whether or not Trump is going to be able to rise to the level of great champion or not. Maybe the guy who comes after him, or gal. But I think it's going to be him. I think he's going to get through this. It'll be tight. It'll be slim. But I think he'll get through it. But watch to see how he evolves from here. So, I thought we were going to discuss Saudi Arabia and Hong Kong tonight. You're right. I was going to talk about that. And I am going to talk about that in just a couple minutes, Jonathan, now that you've reminded me. So I did tease on Monday that I had a really great observation about Hong Kong and Saudi Arabia. And I'll talk about that in a couple minutes. So we'll tease that for the last 15 minutes of the show. Just remind me in about 15 minutes, we'll talk about that. And it's important what it is. And it's important that we talk about it. So Bagel Flinging Dragon wants to remind me when I was talking about John McCain's brain tumor. Did that brain tumor ever get the Medal of Honor and the Medal of Service? I don't think so. And I'm sure that once Trump gets reelected in 2020, if we were to put that in front of him as something to do while he's got nothing to do in his second term except, collect his paycheck, which he doesn't take, I'm sure that he'll maybe do that. That would be awesome. I think honestly that Trump should do that and really fuck with Cindy McCain. Like the minute after he gets reelected in 2020, if he gets reelected, the first thing he should do is tweet out. And this one's for. I just want you to know that Cindy McCain, that this one goes out to John and his brain tumor, who died heroically for our sins. That would just make me really fucking smile like you wouldn't believe. The fourth turning stuff is very interesting, FN based. And I think I think Strauss and Howe are onto something very, I don't say profound, but something worth using as the basis of an analysis. It may not always track, it may not always work, but it's a great metaphor and a great way to move into discussion. So Bagel Flinging Dragon does not believe, and that's, by the way, that's Ryu Shiksa, think that we're going to do anything other than blam straight first, headlong right into the friggin' iceberg. Well, he sits comfortably, by the way, on his base on the moon, sipping his non-recyclable coffee. Just let me know when you're done chroming it, by the way. And if anybody gets that reference, leave a comment down below. Or just keep it to yourself. Even better. All right. Is there significance to Trump 2020 and the GOP election fund merging? Trump has raised a lot more money than the GOP ever could have. The significance to me is that if they want to fuck Trump out of the money he's raised, that would be the way to do it. So I wouldn't put anything past these assholes. Merge the friggin' fund and then spend it all on state races they're already going to win in order to ensure that he loses the Senate and the election is a squeaker, because I don't think they want him reelected. It seems sad that Judge Napolitano has joined the impeach mob. Okay, now I agree. And I've had huge respect for Judge Andrew Napolitano for years. I'm going all the way back to his show on Freedom Watch and on Fox. And before that, when he used to write regularly for LouRockwell.com and others. And I just think that Judge Knapp he's not the man he was for whatever reason. And we may never know what those reasons are. Stoyanovich tells us that Trump's job is to tear down the concept of the imperial presidency and return it to citizen status. And I will say this, Trump has governed in a way that precludes his strongman opportunity. The president has been routinely strengthened by the legislature and previous presidents without any pushback from the legislature for 30 years. And Trump keeps not just doing what he could do by executive order and kicking it back to Congress, because that's Congress's job. And he's running the country in a more constitutional manner than any president has in 30 years. And that's really disconcerting to people. And yet, he continues to be derided as being some kind of dictator, which he hasn't been. I don't know if I can credit Trump with doing the heavy lifting, but his demise could open a lot of eyes. Same thing. Tenjin, you're saying kind of what I'm saying as well. There's a number of different ways in which Trump can still serve us well, even if he's impeached. Because the way he gets impeached will matter. And it will open up a lot more people's eyes and will radicalize a lot of people and change a lot of things. Tone Loke says, I think Trump is showing the current politics and MSN are so over the top that we see it's all fake. I agree with you, Tone. You're absolutely correct. That's part of his job. And only Donald Trump has the skills to do that. And the testicular fortitude and the just inherent contrariness and meanness to just do it. He's a very disagreeable person in the 5 pillars of personality sense. And that works well to his advantage. I honestly think. They're not even going to bring the impeachment inquiry or the opening up of impeachment, the inquiry process to the House for all the marbles because they're scared of giving the minority subpoena power. Exactly. It's important that you realize that they're not opening up inquiry. They're going to go straight to a House vote on impeachment because they want to bypass effectively the evidence gathering stage and have that happen in public. What about the Israel and Zionist connection? This concerns me greatly about Trump. It concerns me too, but I think at a certain level, Trump has begun the process of unwinding a lot of that directly in terms of foreign policy because he knows it's a dead end and that it's actually not going to serve America well in the end. And I think he was willing to go to the mat for Israel up until the point where it started to really, truly blow back on the Americans. Also, he's been outmaneuvered by his opponents. I mean, the U.S.-Saudi-Israeli alliance has been outmaneuvered completely by the Iran, Russia, China, Turkey alliance. It has. There's not much else you can do about it. Okay, let's see. I want to save some room for the last talk about Hong Kong and Saudi Arabia, so I may skip ahead a little bit too much. Let's see. Remember when Zero Hedge got called a Russian propaganda outlet for talking about Ukraine and Crimea and all of this stuff and Hunter Biden and all of this stuff back in 2014? I do remember that. I do. All right, let's see. And don't forget, Browder, Bill Browder, all that stuff, all those people, they're involved in Ukraine. Absolutely. Philip Maxim reminds us that they did censure McCarthy for bullshit. Not just bullshit, for being an amazing commie hunting senator. The CFR doesn't like that. He was getting too close to the Eastern establishment. And Trump is getting too close by going after Ukraine, not going after Syria, not going back into Iran or North Korea or anything else. Went into Ukraine. At this moment in time, when all these narratives around Ukraine and all these important events are happening around Ukraine, he went into Ukraine. Just sat down and chatted with Zelensky, and then those idiots ran with it. Dumb were they? Trump has positioned himself, says Stoyanovich, to make it look like he's the only normal one. Talk about irony. It is really funny. I wonder how much of the $2 billion the Ukrainians stole from the IMF ended up in U.S. pockets. That's a good question, Efeshin. I don't know the answer to that. Trump has shown just how incompetent they all are the whole way. I know it's really very quite funny. How can, asked Brett Harris, the Intel IG, Inspector General, get to change the guidelines for hearsay evidence just in time for this report? Yeah, I wonder. There are no coincidences in politics. And, oh, by the way, Pelosi changed all the rules on impeachment during the session as well. All right. And KB Works, you're right. The thing is, going back to what I said earlier about Ukraine and Russia, Ukraine has to make peace with Russia. Zelensky has to find a way between the Banderists, Azov Battalion. These, by the way, are John McCain's ideas of freedom fighters, by the way. Literal fucking Nazis. Put that in your fucking crack pipe and smoke it, Cindy McCain, you fucking whore. fucking whore she is. Jesus. But they have to. Ukraine cannot survive otherwise. So Bagel Fligging Dragon gets it. He's like, what I said earlier about Trump is that you play his ego against him like you do any good narcissist. Exactly. You want to get Donald Trump mad at you or to react to you. You call him out. You abandon him. The best way to make a narcissist chase after you, walk away from him. Abandon him. They don't like it. All right. Got 20 minutes left. I'm going to probably cut off a little early, and I have a guest in house tonight. Camille and Sophie are out out of town for the weekend, and I'm going to have some people over for the weekend, and I've got a friend in, so he's downstairs, and I don't want to keep him waiting much longer, much past my normal time. So I want to talk about what the last thing is. We're going to talk about Hong Kong and Saudi Arabia. Now, you guys know from the beginning, I've been very skeptical about what's going on in Hong Kong. And that I think that from the beginning, it's been the color revolution. It's been it's been something that has been ginned up and by Western forces. And I think that's been pretty much confirmed at this point that banks like Standard Chartered and HSBC and MI6 and the CIA, none of them want Hong Kong to revert to Chinese control. But let's talk about what's happening in Saudi Arabia. If you look at where we are with Saudi Arabia, we're coming to the end of the narrative that the Saudis have any control over their destiny. The Houthis had scored a major victory against them over the weekend, last weekend. Massive Saudi invasion, including children, was not only repulsed, but then they gave ground back, and tons of war material were captured. The Houthis are going to continue to launch drones at critical Saudi infrastructure because they can until Mohammed bin Salman finally sues for peace. I've heard from now multiple sources, not just from Pepe Escobar, from a couple other sources as well on the ground, that people are beginning to wonder directly when the Houthis are going to attack one of the major cities like Medina or Mecca or something along those lines. And that the House of Saud is in real trouble. They can only get mercenaries to fight for them. No one is loyal to them. All they can do is buy people off. Zero Hedge just ran an article about how much money they've spent trying to shore up their PR image over the last year since the Khashoggi killing. It's insane how much they've lobbied and spent money, how much money they've spent. The Saudis are in very, very serious trouble. Now, what do Hong Kong and Saudi Arabia have in common? They have a currency peg. Saudi rial is pegged to the dollar. The Hong Kong dollar is pegged to the dollar. And both of them run a very, very, very tight peg. We're not talking about, well, it moves like the Singapore dollar moves, a percent here, there, or whatever. No. It's a straight fucking classic freaking peg. Done. Hong Kong dollars buy this many Hong Kong dollars buys a dollar. This many Saudi rials buys this many dollars. That's it. Buys a dollar. That's it. It's a hard peg. That's it. Now, why, from the moment Trump refused to go to war with Iran, when the moment that oil infrastructure attacks started happening all across the Middle East, why, when Iran started making it clear that they would attack Saudi oil tankers for the purpose of raising insurance rates for oil tankers around the world and start destabilizing the oil markets, who buys the most oil in the world right now? China. Where does most of that money flow through? Hong Kong. Who controls most of the major Hong Kong banks? Britain and the US. Now, when you put all that together, how vulnerable is the Hong Kong peg? How vulnerable is the book of business for those people if the petrodollar explodes? Very. Take it one step further. Iran, Russia, China, you're all going to ditch the petrodollar. China, you just signed a $400 billion deal. You're going to invest hundreds of billions of dollars in the Iranian oil and gas sector. You keep telling the Saudis that you don't want to pay dollars for their oil anymore. You want them to take yuan. You want them to break the peg. The Saudis are under existential threat, and the oil markets have been destabilized. The Saudi peg has to break if oil continues to push back towards $40 a barrel. The Saudis can't run this. They're going to break the peg. Well, I got news for you. Enter MI6, enter the CIA, and if you're going to break that peg, fuck you, we're going to break the other peg. Hong Kong real estate, and I remember hearing this a couple of months ago, before the Hong Kong protests started. A couple of weeks before the Hong Kong protests started, I heard noise about major Hong Kong real estate being sold, and we're talking about ancestral homes, summer homes. These are not homes that are rental properties or even used as rental properties. These are, since this is like, it's like selling your place in the, it's like the Davos crowd selling their place in the Hamptons, for Christ's sake. You know what I mean? It's those kinds of properties were being put up on the market because they knew something was coming. How would they know something's coming unless something was coming? Look at what's going on in Hong Kong. I'm hearing 5-star hotels selling rooms for $25 a night. Airline bookings down 40, 50%. Hotel bookings down 60, 70% since these things started. Somehow they won't stop, even though it's the same fucking 500 goddamn kids over and over and over again. The whole thing has been organized from the ground up as a big shit show. It's all being drummed up out of the fears. This is classic color revolution stuff from the ground up, and the way it's organized, the way it's operating on the ground, all of it. This is an eye for an eye thing. If the Saudis are going to lose the petrodollar, China's going to lose their offshore yuan clearing center. Because I told you from the beginning that the extradition law was not about China, about Hong Kong students having sex in a fucking public park. That's not what this was about. Okay? This was about extraditing UK and American prop traders and bank managers and portfolio managers who are involved in money laundering and fixing the fucking offshore peg and costing China billions. And that's what they wanted. And that's who they wanted. And that's why these started when they did. And it all started at the same time that it became clear as day to everybody in the know that Saudi Arabia was no longer capable of defending itself. That that once Trump refused to go to war with Iran, everything fucking changed and they had to start activating things. This is what I'm talking about. This is huge. Okay? Do you see the connection here? This is the way that this game is played by these people at this level. The Brits do not want to give up control of Hong Kong. We do not want China to have control of Hong Kong. We do not, because if Hong Kong falls completely under Chinese control, then the Chinese can still continue to keep their capital account closed by having an offshore yuan clearinghouse and onshore yuan, and have those two currencies be effectively separate. We are desperate, and the focus of the Trump administration's trade war with China is to get them to open up their capital account. The Wall Street banks are desperate to get China's capital account open so that they can flood it with cheap, hot money, and they can destroy, and they can play the game that they play with every other quote-unquote emerging market. They flow money in, then they pull it out, and they sink the economy, and then they fucking destroy the goddamn government. We do this all the freaking time. And China's hip to this shit, and China doesn't want a fucking word of it. They don't want Goldman on the goddamn ground in China unless it's on their terms. They don't want JP Morgan on the ground in Guangdong or Beijing or Shenzhen without unless it's on China's terms. And those guys don't want to go in there unless it's on their terms. That's what this is about. This is about protecting the dollar. It's about protecting the petrodollar. It's about blunting the rise of the yuan. And these two things are completely and inextricably linked because of the currency pegs. Because if the Saudis break the currency peg, it'll have knock-on effects all around the world. So what's the end game? The end game is that Hong Kong does not revert to Chinese status, that Hong Kong declares its independence. I don't think it's going to work. Bagel Flinging Dragon asks me, so just so you know, the same thing is happening in Taiwan. People that worked and lived there for a long time are relocating and selling their places over there. Yep. All right. So this was the insight I had on over the weekend. I was sitting there chatting with Camille while I was working on an article, and I went, holy shit. So there's no U.S. bases in Russia or China. There's no Wall Street bankers there either. Coincidence? Joe Elf says, I'm on fire tonight. The IMF without the philanthropic name. Exactly. All right. So Patrick Vidian says, hey, the FTSE is down 4.5% this week. My short is protecting our investments nicely. Thank you. I'm glad. Now, Patrick, here's the next one for you. And I'm going to leave you guys with this. It's 52 minutes. I'm going to leave in about 2 minutes now. If Boris Johnson, and we'll know in a couple of weeks, is going to be capable of somehow taking the Brits out on a no-deal Brexit, you got to know where you're going to put your money. I ain't going to tell you what. Sign up for the newsletter and you'll find out. All right. I agree. All the marbles says they have to open their capital account if they want to usurp the dollar. I agree, but they're not ready to do so yet. And they cannot, and they don't want to be forced on Britain and the US's timetable. That's the point. While effectively the Chinese and the Iranians are forcing Saudis into receivership and regime change on their timeline, not on the Saudis' timeline. That's why everybody on Wall Street is so angry. That's why the protests in Hong Kong ratcheted up again, and they're trying to get over the weekend. They're trying to get this higher. They're trying to. This is effectively, you back off in the Middle East, we'll back off in Hong Kong. You bet. It won't work because the United States and Britain never back off. They always ask for a ceasefire, then they attack again. Who will replace MBS? Saudi Arabia will break up into fucking 4 or 5 different countries. Saudi Arabia will not survive as a political entity, is what I'm saying. Even if they break the peg. Especially if the Houthis attack. And there's a Shiite uprising in all the oil fields in the eastern part of the country where all the Shiites live and work the oil fields. Have I heard about the tremendous shortage of rubber bands in Saudi Arabia? Asks. Was China going to change Hong Kong's status? Eventually, eventually the Brits would lose. The transition. The end of the transition period would be ending soon. Soon, Chinese law would be complete, and the handover would be complete. The Brits always do this. When they hand back over a colony, they always leave a 20-year. They always leave a mess behind so that they can exploit it and create chaos. El Vaquero reminds us that the KSA does not have enough arable land to feed its people, so the next economic crisis will be rough for KSA, which is exactly why MBS needs to cut the fucking peg, but he can't do so because if he does so, Donald Trump will abandon him. Guaranteed. Just got here. Is there a predictable outcome to all of this? So if you like what you heard tonight, give a like and subscribe down below. If you didn't like what you heard tonight, give a like and subscribe down below. I might say something you like the next time. I'm like that. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Bang the bell for notifications for when I go live, but the show is always Monday nights at 8 o'clock, Friday nights at 8:30, plus or minus 5 minutes. One of these days, I might figure out how to actually schedule these things, but to be honest with you, I can't be arsed to care. I love our audience, and I don't care if it grows much beyond what it is. It's cool, it's fun, it's my therapy hours every week. I do this for me as much as I do it for you. So, if you get value out of it, great. If you do get value out of it and you enjoy what you heard tonight, there are plenty of ways to donate down below. You can sign up for Brave using the Brave browser and stop having Google track you around the world. I'll get a $5 or $10 kickback at this point via Brave in BAT, which is awesome. You can also donate through PayPal if you can, or crypto. The links are down below, or you can sign up for the Gold Goats and Guns investment newsletter over at Patreon/Gold Goats and Guns. It's been the Gold Goats and Guns Hour. I'm Tom Luongo. You guys have a great weekend. I can't wait to see what Monday brings. Keep your stick on the ice.